Hi guys, Hassan here, Head of Emerging Technologies and Solutions at Lenovo Australia and New Zealand. What I hope to take you on today is a bit of a journey beyond Lenovo's traditional PC business and give you an understanding over and above what we're looking to do beyond the PC that will really drive outcomes for our customers. Here you'll see a slide of the Marketunist, and I love using this for many different situations because there's a person saying, yeah, this will be the year of blockchain and social influences and AI, and then the lady there says, but what about our strategy? Dead silence, and the guy at the end saying, and this will be the year of VR, and that's really exciting, right? But we've had conversations where emerging technologies are taken as quite a bit of a fad or a novelty. We're here to change that impression and show you what they can really do for you. So when we look at emerging technology, it can't be about a deployment. It needs to be a strategy, as I highlighted in the earlier slide. So you really need to understand and have a good think about how you feel this technology is going to make a change for your organization, but don't worry about it because Lenovo's here to help. So why digital transformation is required in the learning environment? Look, we've all been impacted by COVID. We've all seen the impacts it has not only on ourselves, but our kids, the children we work with, and families who have been affected by this. And you would have seen a meme going around on LinkedIn. It's like, what developed your digital strategy for 2020? Was it the CEO? Was it the board? And C, it was COVID-19. So the push has been forced upon us, right? And we're in an awkward and unprecedented situation. But what's really important is we take the opportunity at hand and move away from traditional ways of doing things and transition to digital ways of doing things, really driving that digital transformation story and determining what that actually means for you. So I've got, the rapid change of industry tech as a key influencer for why digital transformation needs to occur. Skills and collaboration expectations, because let's face it, technology is changing so rapidly that by the time you finish high school, your uni degree, etc., even within a year, there's new technology out there that you need to, be kept abreast of, understand, be familiar with, right? So our technology and digital literacy skills need to be lifted, not just from an internal IT procurement perspective, but from a user perspective as well, right? I mean, I'm the tech advocate as well as technical support for everybody in my family and my wife's family. That needs to change, right? Digital space convergence is occurring on a regular basis as well. And what I mean by that is, it's no longer, you writing on a whiteboard or you writing on a piece of paper and sharing that, photocopying, faxing. It's all about the digital side of things really coming together. You might be in the classroom, you might be annotating on a whiteboard, you might be sharing that with, a brother or sister school overseas, for example. And what happens from there is it's translated in real time, then you'll get away from the whiteboard, put on a headset, a VR HMD, and you'll be in a 360 environment learning about the migration of emperor penguins. You finish that, you go to the library, and the libraries are becoming a lot more dynamic in what they're offering because obviously all of your traditional textbooks and so forth are now being moved to digital. So they're becoming blended learning spaces. You walk up to a smart device and go, okay, Google, tell me about the mating habits of emperor penguins. So it's really coming together in quite a profound way and really important you understand what that means for you. So the classroom transformed is a key strategy developed by Lenovo. And again, it goes beyond our one-to-one offering in the PC space and really talks about a connected classroom. It's not just about the hardware, and what I'll run you through is 4 key areas on why we've developed this. So it goes from robust devices. Robust devices Lenovo for, L390 Yoga, X390 Yoga, one-to-one programs, but it really goes into the devices we manufacture now in the Android space that help in that STEM and STEAM learning environment. And of course, Mirage Solo, which a lot of schools took up last year, which I'll talk about later as well, the VR side of things, and then our alliances as well, because we don't make everything and anything, but we partner with key organizations for large interactive panels that have elements baked into it like measuring the CO2 levels in a classroom to understand if students are getting enough oxygen, as well as having antimicrobial layers baked into it for the life of the panel. So in an environment like this, if multiple people are touching it, those bacteria cells are actually, killed, cancelled or degraded. On top of that, it has swipe in, tap on, tap off for multi-use classroom. So biology class, educator walks in, taps the NFC component, it brings up all their files in their cloud drive. Exits, the physics teacher comes in, quick tap on, all their files are there, right? The classroom really becomes multi-purpose. It's not about, having a classroom for math, science, biology, etc. It's making the classroom what you need it to for that environment. On top of that, it's our UC and VC side of things as well. And you'll hear from my colleague Rory Martin on the Smart Office side of things, and he'll really talk to how collaboration goes next level with Smart Office and Think Smart Hub 500, as well as Think Smart View. And then the implementation and enablement of it as well. So it's not just about providing the product, it's making sure it works on the network, it's implemented effectively, the floor plan of the classroom's worked out so it can be used in a number of different requirements. And then the enablement side of things is probably the key factor here. It's not about going, here's the solution, thank you, here you go. It's about staying close to that solution and that deployment as well to make sure educators, and there's a wide varied age demographic of educators as well as students, are not sticking to traditional ways, but really understanding, are comfortable and value the digital transformation and the digital way of doing things. So if there is another impact, heaven forbid, with a pandemic element or, people are talking about a wave 2, we can actually be as efficient in the classroom as we would be at home, because learning, working shouldn't be something or somewhere you go to, but rather something you do regardless of where you are in the world, right? Sick at home one day, a student, but can sit in bed and attend a class, make it enabled for them as well. So when we go through the process, and I've just spoken to you about a program we've booted up, but the levels we go through until we hit this process and finalize it are quite deep. First thing is the human centricity side of things, right? Identifying the challenges or the impacts affecting the user. Then determining the changes that need to be implemented as well, because it's not just about understanding what problems you've got, but the changes required to get to the solution. Potential roadblocks and disruptions. We all know a key issue with digital transformation is adoption of technology, right? So making sure that there are no roadblocks along the way or any disruptions with the implementation. And then understanding mission critical deliverables as well, because you've got problems right here, right now, but it's also determining what might be nice to have that in the next year or the following year become mission critical deliverables as well as that technology rapidly changes as well, right? So it's about ROI, driving that ROI. And then lastly, building in as many nice to haves as possible, because nice to haves, also impact and add on to that ROI, but it's the little things often that make the biggest impact, when doing new deployments of technology. Then we go to connectivity and compliance, and obviously that's important from an education perspective, making sure everything's secure, making sure student devices are secure, and we've got a number of, elements both from a hardware and software perspective around our ThinkShield range that enables that, but, making sure compliance and governance within each school and within each particular environment is being managed and maintained as well. Digital and identity credentials are becoming more and more the norm. How do we implement this into a student environment so that their digital footprint is managed and maintained effectively? And understanding the required end user enablement as well, because obviously, and more often than not, security and compliance elements sometimes hinder the end user enablement, so it's a balance of both without compromise, right? And then we move on from connectivity and compliance. It's about agile delivery and also digital methodology. And I spoke about that journey of getting to the end result or delivering the solution. And it's all about a smooth and planned transition from your traditional ways of doing things and digital ways of doing things. But then the capability of scaling this as well, because more often than not, you'll start with a proof of concept or a small deployment. It'll be tested and proven, and then you'll want to scale with that as well. The appropriate platform and connectivity integration, and with remote schools and remote campuses and remote TAFEs, how do we leverage 5G, harness 5G, and work with some of those key carriers to be able to deliver this effectively? And then a holistic and integrated platform as well, because more often than not, I've heard from too many schools and institutions that somebody will come in with a solution and it'll have its own niche or its own refined platform that doesn't really integrate with anything. We want to avoid that as much as possible and really drive the capability around bringing a holistic, platform together for our customers. And the contextual enablement of data, and I'll talk through that in a second with regards to some of our IoT capabilities, but when we talk about data and it being, I guess the currency of the fourth industrial revolution, which we're all in right now, when it's unstructured, it is basically useless. So making sure the data you have and it being collected and implemented effectively is managed in a way where it can not only be viewed but leveraged at the end user level is something quite compelling when done properly. And the user experience. I can't harp enough on the user experience. And this is not just from an education perspective, but from an overall perspective as well. As you'd all probably know, the user experience is paramount. I spoke about adoption of technology and the challenges around that, and when we talk about our smartphones, everybody's got one, and we've got, Uber Eats apps, banking apps, all kinds of apps, right? New South Wales Service First apps. When we talk about, do we need an instruction manual to use those apps? No, none whatsoever. It's almost so intuitive we forget we're actually engaging with a piece of technology. That's the kind of level we want to get to as well when we're developing solutions or providing recommendations for consideration to our education customers as well. We need to make sure that what we provide, what we implement is something that becomes almost second nature for the organization. And guys, it can't be about the technology. It needs to be about the outcome, right? We're an outcomes-based solution organization. It's not about the products we make, but about how people use them. And from my side of things, and my business here at Lenovo is all around the AI, the IoT, the VR, the AR, and all the new elements around mobility that are coming along, but also the layers involved in them as well. So hardware, yes, management layer, third-party hardware and accessories, software and applications, services, learning and development, right? All those come together to deliver an outcome. It's a solutions-based experience here. When we look at the adoption and the shift in tech inside the learning environment, it's key to understand all the different moving components and the elements inside that infrastructure. And we mentioned, things like Wi-Fi, etc., learning management systems, but delivery as well. How do we turn around and deliver a device to a student ready to go, when they start for the term? It's all around those elements as well. Now, what I'm going to share with you here is not necessarily around education, but more around the implementation of some of this new tech out inside agriculture, out inside farming, out inside the modern workplace. And it's important to understand these elements as well, because if we don't, we're not setting up ourselves for success in terms of the technology we implement inside the learning environment. So the avocado, $1,000 a year plant. Avocado farmers are growing these plants, and because of the droughts that were here not so long ago, losing a lot of their crop and produce because they weren't able to effectively understand, when the plant was going to bear fruit, but more importantly, how the seasonality and the drought would affect the plant as well, because in a state of distress, avocado plants drop their fruit. And that's a lot of money for farmers, especially when they're trucking in thousands of liters of water to basically water these crops. What we're doing is we're going to be working with a local solution provider who has an IoT sensor, not only to measure the moisture levels in the soil, but to measure the diameter of the branch of the plant as well, of the trunk, so to speak, and then 3 copper rods going into the trunk of the plant as well. So we're measuring the water levels in the soil, the water being taken up into the trunk of the plant, and how much the plant is expanding or contracting. So to determine whether it's going to stress itself out and drop the fruit, and when to actually water that plant as well. Our compute, both prem and off-prem, will be the support for all that data, and it will be contextually evaluated in a single web console so farmers can determine if they need to water that plant more effectively or if it's okay for the next few days. Same thing for cattle. So they're, again, trucking in thousands of liters of water. And what you do in a traditional trough, if you've seen a traditional trough, it's either just a bucket out there, right? Or it's a bucket with a piece of shade over it and a block of wood to measure if it goes down to a particular let more water in. But more often than not, and I don't know if you've seen around in the news, they were going to actually cull a whole bunch of camels because they were drinking the water for cows. What we've got separate to facial recognition is object recognition. So we can determine the difference between a cow, a camel, a sheep, and then let out water per how much that animal would drink when they come to the trough. So on average, a cow drinks about 3 liters of water every time it turns up to the trough. 10 cows turn up, 30 liters of water gets released. Then 3 sheep turn up, they drink about 1 liter of water per sitting at the trough. Another 3 liters of water gets released. If a camel is recognized, going up there solely, water won't get released for it. And as you can appreciate, if there's 10 cows already there and a camel tries to sneak up, it'll get nudged out, right? Because cows are a bit grumpy when they're drinking. So this is about, proper transformation of how that water is going to get used by object recognition. And these cameras that we actually manufacture can pan, tilt and zoom and manage a number of different troughs on a property, right? So it's all about understanding how many cattle, per particular part of the property and how they migrate, etc., with the amount of grass they've got to graze with and so forth. When we look at the smart workspace, and I'm sure you've seen it around your schools, around your TAFE campuses, uni campuses, it's not all about sitting behind a desk anymore. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of different organizations and the way they've transformed. And if you have a look at the office around here, it's not necessarily just desks anymore. Behind me, you'll see breakout areas, because collaboration is something that no longer happens behind tables or in meeting rooms. It happens from anywhere, web and video conferencing and, particular headsets. A student could be sitting on a train with a 5G connection and doing coursework with a group. It's no longer about just being at a particular location and collaborating, how you see it occurring from there. And modern learning spaces are changing as well. During the shutdown, the COVID lockdown here in New South Wales. I started working from home and, I set up in the office, but soon I was kicked out by my daughter, who needed to learn from home, and my wife to homeschool her. And I found myself sitting in a number of different areas around my house, even in the garage where I've got my gaming set up. It's no longer about being in a particular location or having a particular setup. Working or learning is something you can do from anywhere and everywhere, as long as you've got the right tools to do so. And I'll run through examples of that in a second. So I love using this comment because it's so key and so powerful, and it's from Bill Gates, and it states, the first rule of any technology used in an environment is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. So technology, the planning, the implementation can have very powerful and profound effects. And as long as you've got the right approach to it, and Lenovo can help you with all of that, it's a journey that will, definitely bear fruit for you in your journey of digital transformation in your learning environment. So when we look at enabling the modern learning environment with Lenovo, we do build devices, aside from all those products and services I mentioned earlier in third-party solutions. Enabling the environment starts with a one-to-one device, and it's how we compute, of course. And here I've got the Lenovo Yoga 4G, and it'll actually turn into a 5G product shortly when 5G becomes a lot more capable and enabled. And this device here has a 24-hour battery life. So when we're talking about a full student day, this delivers it and more. Now, the compute is different to what you would traditionally see from an Intel platform. This is a Qualcomm platform, always connected, always on PC, and that's why it delivers that 24-hour battery life. Now, the compute isn't anywhere up to the standards of an i7, but when you look at 80% of the requirement from customers, it's really about just entry-level compute around Office suite of products, Teams, etc. And this certainly delivers that. Now, with far-field microphones, the level of AI capability that comes into this device as well is really profound, because you could be in a room full of 50 people or a group of students, and you could be talking and annotating to your device, and it's sending that data up to the cloud and only converting your voice to text. So it's really compelling on how it does things, and personal digital assistants are enabled through this as well. So again, this is a very, very versatile, very light device that delivers capability and compute from anywhere. And then when you pair it with things like headsets, etc., with active noise cancelling and electric noise cancelling, again, learning is something you do from anywhere, no matter where you are, on a train, out in a park, at a friend's house, at home, sitting on the couch with your feet propped up on the sofa. It's about how you want to learn and how you want to compute. Then when we move to mobile devices, and this is the Yoga Smart Tab, and I love this device actually because it's quite versatile at what it does. It's got a kickstand, and when I was traveling, I used to take this with me all the time, because not only was I able to use it as a second screen to my device, but it has Google Assistant baked into it as well. I can download the Teams application, I can download my Office applications, and I can actually connect to meetings and have this propped up anywhere, even sitting in the foyer of a hotel while I'm waiting for my next meeting to start. with Dolby Pro Logic boom speakers baked into it. The sound is excellent. And even for things like Netflix and so forth, when you're traveling, it's quite profound and phenomenal in terms of experience as well. We do a number of solutions around this product, and this product just isn't good for education. To give you an understanding of some of the other use cases, aged care, personal devices, for the elderly inside aged care institutions to still be able to connect with their family over Teams calls, etc., is something that's really picking up right now. And the cases you see here not only protect it from a drop perspective, but we can also bake antimicrobial agent into it as well to stop the spread of germs and bacteria, etc. From a VR perspective, everybody would have been familiar with our Lenovo Mirage Solo platform, and look, we deployed this into about 50 schools last year and this year as well, about 8 TAFEs and close to about 16 universities that are using it, everything from, VET with TAFE SA, around their industrial refrigeration course, but, actual university degrees around teaching and learning, because they're going to be implementing this technology into classrooms. So they're starting to understand and learn on how they actually implement that in their teaching degree. And then finally, even included in the VR platform is our Lenovo Think Reality headset, which is augmented reality. So augmented reality, different to virtual reality. Virtual, you'd be in a contained environment, you'd be seeing what's happening on the screen. This, you're actually seeing the environment presented in front of you, but you've got an augmented layer over the top, which provides things like augmented entities. So if I was, say for example, a medical student going through virtual surgery on a cadaver or on a mannequin, I could go pick up a tool and actually tell me what that tool is, and it'd tell me where the incision point is as a guide. So you can actually use VR and AR as a transition piece, right? So virtual reality, virtual operating theater, augmented reality, real operating theater, or simulated operating theater with mannequins, etc., where you're still provided guiding and aid for that experience. And IoT. Everybody wants to understand how IoT is going to have an impact, not only on their organization, but the way they go about their day-to-day. And you've got companies talking about different elements of IoT until the cows come home, right? But again, it's about understanding what you hope to get out of IoT. And in education, especially with everybody coming back to school, understanding the interaction between particular students. And this is not from a big brother perspective, right, where the ethical side of things is compromised, or we're trying to tap into student information. It's not about that at all. It's about managing the flow of students, whether it's inside a playground, at a sports carnival, understanding how many are coming in and out to make sure that there's less of an impact with regards to, interaction with one another, segregation between junior and senior schools, etc. A lot of schools are actually trying to understand, a lot of TAFEs and universities are trying to understand how they manage social distancing as things progress forwards. And IoT can actually deliver that. Here at Lenovo, we're actually going to be implementing our own IoT shortly to manage everybody coming back to the office, and we're going to be walking the talk, right? Because we want to make sure A, we're being compliant with government standards and regulations, B, we've got the best interests of our employees at mind, and C, we're making sure that, heaven forbid, should something occur, we know where those interactions have been and how we can track them and make sure we contain the spread. We're taking every precaution outside, from a traditional standpoint, washing our hands, cleaning, etc. But when it comes to everybody coming back to work, to make sure we're managing that properly, we look to elements of IoT and sensors and beacons to be able to enable us in that space. And you'll hear from my colleague Ben Williams around gaming. So Ben is the BDM for ANZ around Legion and esports. We will be working with him to basically enable schools to take their esports gaming to the next level, through our third-party solutions business as well. So it's not just about, an esports machine or a gaming device. It's about converting particular areas into multi-purpose environments. So by day, it could be CAD design, etc. for gaming. By night, you could be hosting esports championships in your neighborhood. So it's quite phenomenal about what we're doing there as well. And lastly, our brothers and sisters in Motorola, so full complement of mobile phones. And mobile phones, people look at them and we've all got one, we interact with them, we use them, and it's a part of our everyday lives. But how can that device be more? How can that device be our security credentials from a student perspective, to do zero sign into a PC? How can we manage exit and entry access via NFC, RFID technology into particular areas inside schools? So it's a credential there as well. And what can you do with the mobility first strategies? So if a student does find themselves in a crammed, packed train or on a bus, they can still dial into a group assignment and not miss out there, right? With a mobility first strategy. So it's all about making everything and all the elements of technology palatable and desirable with regards to your interaction on it. And on that note, look, we make many different pieces of technology and we provide many solutions, but it's not about what we do. It's about how we make them solve problems for customers. So on that note, thank you for your time. Please feel free to reach out to myself or your Lenovo account rep, and we'd love to have a further conversation with you about what Lenovo technology and solutions can do for you. Thank you very much.